Today, I have got a killer show for you. I have the gentleman known as the Oracle of Orlando, Joe Bert. He is the founder of Certified Financial Group since 1976. They have over 35 folks there. He is a CFP. More importantly, he is also a personality of sorts. He hosts his own radio show, On the Money. He has a nationally syndicated TV show, The American Investor. Folks, welcome Joe Bert.
Morning, Charles.
How are you, man?
I'm busy but good, thank you.
Busy but good. How's the weather in Orlando today?
Well, we're preparing for a tropical storm that may roll through here this weekend, coming out of Mexico, but we'll see. It's that time of year here in Florida.
Man, I bet. I know Disney is a four-letter word to some people for a variety of whatever reasons, but I can tell you we've spent some time and some real money down there.
It can be, yep, for sure.
Well, I got three kids, 13, soon to be 11 and 9. It's easier when they're stair-steps like that. I can usually quote the ages. But yeah, one of them's not going to college. I just don't know which one yet.
Well, come on back. Our economy can use the money.
I'll bet. Well, Joe, before I hijack this thing too much, tell us a little bit about kind of your story of how you got started to where you are now with being so successful.
Well, I'll give you the Reader's Digest version. I went to Ohio State and studied international business. And strangely enough, I got involved in the founding of a small frozen food company in Ohio that was ultimately acquired by a division of the H.J. Heinz Company. In fact, it's where they made all the Weight Watchers food back in the 70s and 80s. And got out of that business when I was 29 years old, didn't know what I wanted to do, and decided I didn't want to do it in the snow anymore. I brought my family to Florida, and for about the first 6 months, did nothing but kicked around town, trying to understand what the business climate was, what opportunities were out there. I pretty much figured I was going to be an entrepreneur. I just didn't know what I wanted to do. And during that 6-month time frame, I had the great opportunity to meet some very successful business people here in town. And after spending some time with them and popping back a couple of beers and getting to know them a little bit and talking about their personal finances, how that kind of pops up every now and then, I really saw in them a collection of financial accidents, which looking back on my life, which is pretty much what it was. And although I was an international business major and studied corporate finance and business law and accounting and economics and all the things that you would think it would prepare me to make good personal financial decisions, I didn't realize how ignorant I was until I got involved in making those decisions for myself. And about that time, I stumbled upon a magazine called Financial Planning. Strangely enough, I still remember the cover today. It was a dark green cover. And I read it from cover to cover about 2 or 3 times. And I said, what they're talking about here, I know something about it, and I can see a need for this, but who does this stuff? And I learned about the College for Financial Planning, got enrolled in the College for Financial Planning, and ultimately got my Certified Financial Planner designation in 1980. And from there, I was fortunate enough to team up with a couple of CPAs and form a company that we tried to model ourselves after a company called Equitech. Was out of California. They went public. And in 1981, we got in the syndication business. And back in the 80s, that's what you did with the 81 tax law. You did tax shelters. And so I was doing financial planning, and we syndicated tax shelters. And in fact, we syndicated the first citrus grove here in Florida. We're written up in Money Magazine back then, and it went full cycle, made some money. However, the 86 tax law changed it overnight and changed our business model overnight, and we regrouped. And I took over the investment advisory firm, and at that time, the broker-dealer and the insurance agency, and formed a Certified Financial Group. So today, we're pretty much out of the broker-dealer business and pretty much running a fee-for-service business and doing financial planning and investment management.
That's quite the winding road to get to where you are now, Joe.
Well, look at the gray hair, I've been out.
I would swap with you in a heartbeat. You got more hair now than I did when I was 21. I was one of the very first guys that had to start shaving my head, and 26 years ago, it wasn't as accepted as it is now.
Well, it looks good.
I appreciate it. So let me back up. You were an international business major, which I only took one international business course in college, and it was one of my favorite ones. I wish I'd have taken more. So how do you go from international business major to frozen food king peddling Weight Watchers?
Well, my father found this small company that was almost going out of business. And he wanted me to come up. Here's the story.
Okay.
It was my senior year in college. He called me, and I just finished my exams. And he called me. He says, "Listen, I know you." He didn't say this, but here's what he was intimating. He says, "You've been to college 4 years. You got a business degree. I didn't graduate high school. I'm thinking of buying this company. Come up and take a look." So my fraternity brother and I went up and took a look, and the thing was on its last legs. But he said, "Why don't you come to work with me, and I'll give you one share of stock and $100 a week." Now, this was a big come down for me because in my college years, I worked construction jobs in the steel mills. And those jobs, Charles, were phenomenal jobs. They were union jobs. And I worked from 7 at night to 7 in the morning, got paid time and a half after 8 hours, double time on the weekends, and triple time on the holidays. And I was bringing home back in the 60s over $600 a week.
That's big money.
That was big money. So anyway, he said, "I've got a deal for you. $100 a week, share a stock." I said, "All right, you want help? I'll help you. But I've got to go back to school because I'm 13 hours short of my degree." I was a pre-med major. And I realized after organic chemistry that I wasn't cut out to be a doctor. So I went to business school and got an international business. So the long of it is that I said, "All right, I'll come up there and try to figure this thing out." Well, what happened is I got the taste of entrepreneurship. And one thing led to another, led to another, led to another. I was supposed to go back to school in the fall. I didn't. Went back to school in the winter. I didn't. Went supposed to go back to school in the spring. I didn't. I got married the following summer, and the rest is history. So anyway, the company grew substantially. And we ultimately sold it, and here we are.
Good night. That's an awesome story. I am dumbfounded by the number of Joe Berts that are out there that you look at now, and they have turned their lifestyle, their business into something really nice, really big. And so many of you guys just worked your butt off in college doing stuff that nobody else would do.
Well, I'm motivated by success and by money, and I saw an opportunity working these jobs. And I was working, Charles. I was working with people. These were what do you call them? Guys who went from job to job, city to city, state to state, and worked these tough jobs. And I was with them. First time I ever tried chewing tobacco was with these guys.
Did you know to spit?
Pardon me?
Did you know that you were supposed to?
Oh yeah. But if you've never tried it, you have. And the reason they chewed tobacco is because the environment in which we were in, we were demolishing blast furnaces. And I don't want to give you all the details of what was involved in that, but it was pretty hairy work looking back on it. And anyway, you had to keep your mouth wet. And these guys chewed tobacco, and they taunted me one day to try it, and I did get sick. I didn't vomit, but I damn near.
That I can tell you, I grew up in rural Tennessee, and everybody where I lived, worked as soon as you hit double digits. And I didn't have a tobacco farm like everybody else did. Within walking distance, there was a junkyard.
Yeah.
So at 10 years old, I started working over there with a bunch of, ex-cons and whoever else dealing in used tires and wheels. And that was one of the first things they taught us, like, you got to keep your mouth wet out here. You'll burn up.
Right.
So they give us this little patch of skull, except you were smarter than I was. I didn't know that you were supposed to spit it out, so I swallowed it. And, oh, my God, I've never been so sick in my life.
Well, this wasn't snuff. This was chewing tobacco. Red man, I think it was called. You put a wad of it in your. Yeah. Anyway,
that's old school stuff right there. So all right, so you do this, you guys get it to a point, you're successful, you sell. How do you, you're married at this point. How do you talk to the wife and say, all right, it's cold, or is this her idea? Let's go to Florida and then I'll be unemployed and start interviewing people to figure out what I do next?
No, what happened is that when I was building this company, I didn't take a vacation for nearly 7 years. And frankly, my marriage was almost on the rocks. I had 2 kids, and I was spending, most of my waking hours in the business. In fact, there's times I didn't go home. I had a couch in the office, and just whatever you have to do, you have to do. And when we ultimately sold the business, I'll never forget. It was Christmas, 1974, and I'm standing at the cash register buying a Christmas tree, and I got the tree in my right hand. On the left-hand side was a bulletin board, and there was a 3x5 card on the bulletin board stapled that said, house for rent, Fort Myers Beach, call this number. So I wrote down the number. I went home and told my wife, I said, we're going to take a vacation. I don't know what we're going to do the rest of my life, but we haven't had a vacation in 7 years. And we need to get away. And she said, hooray. So we went down to Fort Myers, spent a couple of weeks just walking the beach and just letting all this run out of me and just relax for the first time.
And Fort Myers is on the beach.
Fort Myers Beach, yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And on the way back, we stopped at Disney because my two children at that time were, I think, 4 and 2. And Disney in 1974, just a couple 3 years old, and Orlando was just coming out of the ground. And I liked the feel of Orlando. I had been to Florida as a youngster several times, so I knew Florida as another state to come to. And so we went to Disney, and I'm driving back north, and I'll never forget, we turned into our driveway, and the snow was so deep I can't even get out of the car. And I said, this is nuts. So I said to my wife, I don't know what we're going to do. I'm going to go back to Florida. Teamed up with another guy that was also in a career change, and said, let's go down there and just kick the tires. And I went down there, spent a couple of weeks. I told my wife, put the house on the market. I don't know what we're going to do, but come on down. And we put the house on the market. First people that came through offered us full price. We sold it. Next thing I knew, I'm hauling a U-Haul down to Florida, not know what I was going to do.
Right.
And that's how it tied into, kicking the tires for 6 months and meeting people and so forth. And then
what gave you the
opportunity in financial planning?
Well, what gave you the foresight to say, hey, man, I'm not going to just sit here, thumb through the yellow pages and dig through the classifieds? What gave you the idea? I need to get out and meet and greet and talk to people.
Well, if you're coming to a new town, you got to get the lay of the land. You need to understand who the movers and shakers are, what the economy's like, where nice places to live, and those kinds of things. And you begin to socialize. And fortunately, and the good thing about Orlando back in the early 70s, it was a new town for most part. And we had a huge influx of people coming in. And we still do today, but
Sure.
Orlando is an established city today. But back in the 70s, it was very easy to get invited to places. And people were interested in meeting other people because many of them, like me, were new to the area. Unlike moving to a big city like Boston or New York or Chicago or Los Angeles,
Sure.
You can't break into those areas easily. But Orlando was new territory, and so it was the right
So-
place at the right time.
Was there anybody specifically that you can remember, or a meeting that you had that was a little more pivotal than others?
No, just in fact, I lost touch with these guys over 35, 40 years, but just
Sure.
just a general, they were upbeat, people hustle. The thing that I found, this is crazy, there was people that were here in Orlando had what I called Florida-itis. They went to the office late, long lunches, left early, and they were on a semi-vacation because it was Florida.
Right.
I came from Ohio where it was hustle. And if you hustled and you had an idea in a new town, you can do well. And that's how, I was fortunate, right place at the right time with the right idea.
So before we get back to the financial firm, I want to ask what's going to sound like a dumb question. What does syndicating a citrus grove even mean?
It was a limited partnership. And with the 81 tax law, had incentives. Basically, you could invest $1 and get all your money back in tax savings and then some. And hopefully, if the thing sold for a profit, you even made money on top of that because you had accelerated depreciation, investment tax credits, things that enhanced the deductions. And so we syndicated it. We put together limited partnerships. We were the general partner. We bought the groves, we managed them, and sold shares in it, and then managed it. And when it ultimately went full cycle, sold the grove, our investors got their money back, and we made money. And we did that with real estate, with their apartment buildings, office buildings, and citrus groves, and ultimately almond orchards in California. And then the 86 tax law came along and changed our business model overnight. At one time, we had 6 offices, Los Angeles, San Diego, Tampa, Washington, here, Ormond Beach. Had about 150 employees, and I was spending a lot of time on airplanes. Wow. And so 86 tax law overnight changed it. So we had to wind down and restructure. And my two partners and I went our own separate ways. And I took over the investment advisory firm and as I said, the insurance firm, and started doing financial planning and the broker dealer. And back in that day, pretty much everything was commission based. And we changed our business model about 25 years ago and moved into doing money management for a fee.
That sounds like one of those points where it seems pretty dark maybe at the moment, where tax law comes in and completely screws up everything you're doing, but in hindsight sounds like it was a big blessing.
Well, yes, in hindsight it was. It's just working through the toughness of the time and making tough decisions.
So we're looking at I'm butchering this, certified financial group. So if I'm Charles Alexander walking in off the street, tell me succinctly, what is the difference between you guys and the next independent advisory firm right there?
Well, I think the distinction is that all of our planners are certified financial planners. We have 15 CFPs here under this roof. All of our planners are certified financial planners. We do financial planning first and investment management second. We believe that good investing requires good planning up front. Unfortunately, many people in our business just want to manage the money and don't want to do the upfront legwork. But we believe that good investing requires planning up front. And our firm is also what's called CFEX certified by the Center for Fiduciary Excellence. You can Google that, but fewer than, I think now about 1% of the investment advisors in the country are CFEX certified. And that just says that we've passed the rigors of their requirements. It's a 100+ page questionnaire. They come in and audit you. We have an annual audit. And it's a tough thing to get, and we're proud of it. It means it's simply that we maintain the highest level of fiduciary standards. So that's our distinction, I think.
That's a pretty tight distinction. So how do you go about marketing that, informing other people that you had this distinction, you had these CFPs, you have something that is unique, but somebody walking in off the street that needs this long educational process, how do you go about getting them to understand who you are, why you're different, or why that matters to people that may have, significant amount of savings, but still haven't done anything with it?
Well, generally people don't walk in off the street. They've heard of us, seen us, maybe heard our radio show, saw one of our TV commercials, seen us in a magazine, seen us written up in one of the local publications, and they know a little bit about us. And, today with the internet, everybody Googles your firm. So we get a lot of hits on our website and people learn about us and how we're different. And so when they walk in, I think they have a pretty good understanding of who we are and what we do.
So for anybody watching, their website is financialgroup.com, which is about the best website you could probably get for financial advisors. That means Joe snatched that thing up early.
Well, yeah. Yeah, I once again, just trying to be on the cutting edge of things. And when I saw what this internet was all about, I said, we have to lock down this URL. And we did. It's financialgroup.com. And we also locked down certifiedfinancialgroup.com. And I've had several offers to sell it.
I'll bet. So it's interesting for you to say, I have so many people that want to do all things digital, and it sounds like you guys are still utilizing some traditional marketing methods with radio and TV and print. And then that the first thing, and this is a thing I often explain to anybody that owns a business, that your website is your storefront. So if somebody refers me to a financial advisor, that probably means I was asking. And I asked somebody at church, at work, on the golf course, and I might have taken two different names, so to speak. Well, the first thing I do is not pick up the phone or email. That's what we used to do. First thing we're going to do is what? Go to their website.
Exactly.
And if I go to your website and it looks, walks, and talks and sounds like everybody else's, there's nothing memorable there. And you guys, having taken a look at yours, has it full of content, media, not just the print stuff, but like you say, you work diligently to have a radio show. Yet you got a TV show. You guys repurpose that content. And what, I'm answering your question for you, but kind of what are the results of that? How do you get other people in your firm involved in putting this together?
Well, we have a chief marketing officer, and that's her responsibility is to, I come up with a lot of ideas, sometimes too many, she says.
Sure.
And then we sort through it and she figures out how to make it happen. And so, one of the big initiatives that we had in the last year or so was the testimonials. And the SEC, came out with their rules and guidelines. We studied them intensively, ran them by our compliance people as to what you need to do in terms of disclosure, and now we're doing testimonials on the radio and on our TV ads, and it's very powerful.
That's one thing, and it may be an offline conversation, but I would love for more advisors to understand. So many times I explain to them, pretty much everything is story based. We can blind people with facts and figures, but we understand stories better than anything else. And that goes all the way back to biblical times, medieval times, heck, even cavemen. On the walls of caves, they did not have fact figures. 3 Gorats died today by tiger. They would draw a picture, tiger. This is me running, to explain to people what to do. Yet so many folks will hide. And you and I had a conversation before we ever hopped on here. Joe has his own compliance officer in house and has a consultant that advises the compliance officer to make sure that things are up and up. But as long as you're not sending out a lot of promissory or guarantees, you can do regular and traditional marketing, but story-based stuff. I've gotten off track here. Testimonials are one that so many advisors are afraid to do because the compliance monster will get them, and you guys have done it and done it successfully. So what is it that you get in a testimonial that makes it compliance friendly yet still effective?
Well, you just follow the guidelines. You have to disclose that they weren't paid for it. You have to disclose their names, and it has to be legit. You can't tell the people what to say. And so we did a survey of all of our clients about a year ago, Charles, and we got, believe it or not, we had over a 35% response on the survey, and we asked basically 5 questions of the clients. Would you recommend us? What do you like? So on and so forth. And we had over a 98% positive rating from all those people.
Wow.
And yeah, actually, it blew my mind. In fact, when I get a little bit depressed every now and then, I'll go back. No, I'm serious.
Sure.
When you hear the sincere compliments that your clients have given you, with things like said, I have peace of mind. I can sleep at night. I can now retire. You've helped my family. You've helped my children. All this stuff that's from the heart. It's I can't tell you how good it makes you feel. And so we use that in our ads.
Well, that's excellent info, and that's you going back to review that, and that's 100% right. I've done that for myself. I also do business coaching, and we get evaluations. Anytime I feel like I'm just having a rough day, I can go back and review, and you look at these positive responses, and
Right.
even though working in junk tires and wheels had some satisfaction to it, or working in the construction area or frozen foods, it's not the same as when you're advising somebody, giving them financial peace visits.
Right.
Well, let's make a quick pivot. I got a couple of fun questions to ask. I'm gonna go back to a couple of things you had said earlier. What fraternity were you in?
Lambda Chi Alpha.
Lambda Chi. That's a national fraternity.
Yep.
You keep up with any of those guys?
Actually, a couple of my fraternity brothers I see regularly. One of them lives right here around the corner from me. In fact, he was the best man at my wedding. And I just talked to another one of my old roommates last night. Yeah, I keep up with them. Good
deal. That's important to do. That's some of the best friends I have. I was in a Kappa Sigma, and that's in my wedding, and guys I still keep up with today. And you were talking about having a couple of beers with the folks in Orlando. What's your favorite beer?
Yingling, I think. I'm not a beer snob. I drink more wine and scotch today than I do beer.
I love a good pale ale, and I have learned the older I get, the fewer of those I'm allowed to have at one given time.
Yeah.
All right, so one more thing. What's this might be a curveball for you. What's the best under $100 purchase you've made recently or even ever?
Probably the glasses that I'm wearing. These are great.
All right.
Glasses. They come from a company called thinoptics.com, and they're super lightweight. They come in different colors, and I can't tell you the number of compliments I've gotten on them over the years.
So, man, they look sharp.
Yeah.
Joe, I appreciate it. I'm going to wrap that up here. Ton of great stories, a lot of good takeaways. If you don't mind sharing, how can somebody get in touch with you?
The best way is go to our website, financialgroup.com, and you can reach me through there. All of our contact information is right there. Learn about us and the wonderful folks that I work with.
Joe, thank you very much, sir, and you have a great day.
You're welcome, Charles. Thank you.
All right.